Single Dad's Touching Trust unveils the incredible secret his babysitter is the CEO's daughter. Jake wiped the grease from his hands onto a rag, looking up just in time to see Lily sprinting through the door, her brown hair bouncing like springs. She was full of life, but Jake felt heavy under the weight of bills piling on his desk. The laughter in his home felt like a sweet ache since the day Deborah left. He buried his longing for companionship under the daily grind of running a small repair shop, where every dollar counted. But with each tick of the clock, a new fear crept in. Would he ever be able to provide the stability Lily deserved? Every night, he haunted his tiny workshop after closing, tightening bolts and mulling over numbers, grappling with the reality of being a single father. They needed more money, a safety net for Lily. When he met Mr. Collins, it felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. The CEO's offer to partner with him ignited a flicker of hope, but as he stared at the contract, a gnawing doubt surfaced. What would it mean for Lily? Would he trade the joy they shared for a number on a balance sheet? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The arrival of Emma, the babysitter, signaled a turning point. With her bright smile and infectious laughter, she breathed life back into their home. Watching Lily light up around her was both heartening and unsettling. An exertion of warmth in a world where he often felt like he was playing with shadows. Yet, Jake couldn't shake the idea that someone as carefree as Emma had probably never faced the kind of financial desperation that loomed over him. At times, the sight of them lying on the living room rug, lost in a book or a silly game, stirred something deep in him. Jealousy? No, it felt like yearning. He wanted that connection again, to feel free enough to laugh and play, but the weight of his responsibilities shackled him. He often overthought their innocent bonding, imagining the judgments of others. A single dad, relying on a babysitter, not just any babysitter, but a young woman enjoying her carefree 20s while he slogged on. But in his heart, he knew she was doing more than just keeping Lily entertained. Emma was a bridge back to joy. And yet, as he stared into the abyss of impending deadlines for the partnership, his anxiety tightened around him like a vice. If he committed to Collins, they could escape the grind, but he couldn't shake off the rising fear that it would mean losing what he had built with Lily and Emma, a fragile yet undeniable family bond. Caught in this tempest of pressure, a sudden turn of events sent him spiraling. Lily fell ill, her laughter replaced by quiet sobs and fevered eyes. In those unsettling days, Jake turned to Emma, finding comfort in her calm demeanor amid their chaos. Their connection deepened through worry and care, but with her near, he couldn't ignore the gnawing thought: the CEO's daughter was mixing into a life he struggled to hold together. The idea clawed at him. Would the partnership with Collins blind him to the bonds nurtured in his living room? As he watched Emma nurse Lily back to health, he felt something fluctuate, an emotional tether that entwined their fates in ways he wasn't ready to confront. Just as he began to understand how deeply he cherished her presence, he stumbled across a heartbreaking truth that shattered his new balance. Overhearing a conversation about the upcoming deal with Mr. Collins, Jake felt the floor drop beneath him. Emma wasn't just a babysitter, she was entwined in the tangled web of his biggest dilemma. Facing a decision that bore the weight of his every fear, Jake found himself at a crossroads, wondering if he could shield Lily and Emma from the impending storm. Would ambition overshadow the most precious bond he had fought to rebuild? The walls of his integrity narrowed, and he couldn't help but fear the outcome of love, of trust, and of his very sense of worth. The tension in Jake's chest morphed into a crushing weight as he replayed the conversation in his mind. Emma's laughter echoed like a distant memory, swallowed by the harsh reality that engulfed him. He stood frozen by the door frame, cradled between the warmth of his home and the chill of impending decisions. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about Lily, her innocence, and that spark of joy she so desperately needed. The days following Lily's illness dragged on painfully, stretching each moment into an eternity. Jake found himself retreating into his workshop, the dim light only emphasizing his isolation. Lost among the tools and half-finished projects, he clung to the routine as a lifeline, yet the deal with Collins gnawed at him like an insatiable parasite. Every conversation he had with the CEO felt steeped in distrust, a sharp reminder that nothing was as it appeared. Needles of doubt prodded at his resolve. Emma was the daughter of his potential partner, a connection he hadn't anticipated. Did she see him as merely a means to an end? Or worse, had her presence in their lives been orchestrated by her father to manipulate him into compliance? Jake couldn't shake off the sense of betrayal that coiled in his stomach. The fabric of his little family felt fragile, fraying at the edges with every passing moment. One evening, as twilight descended and the shadows grew long, Emma came to check on Lily. The vibrant spark in her eyes caught him off guard, and as she entered the living room, a soft aura enveloped her, dispelling some of his darker thoughts. But the ease between them felt strange now, an intimate friendship wrapped around a foundation of secrets. "Hey, how's Lily?" Emma asked, her tone gentle, piercing through Jake's tangled thoughts. "Getting better," Jake replied, the knot in his stomach easing momentarily as he studied her. She looked beautiful, unguarded, and his heart stuttered slightly. Without thinking, he found himself opening up. "It's so hard, the pressure just keeps building. I thought I could manage everything, but now?" He hesitated, searching her face for understanding. "I don't even know what I'm supposed to prioritize anymore." Emma stepped closer, genuine concern etched in her features. "You're doing great, Jake. She's lucky to have you." Her voice was steady, an anchor in his sea of anxiety. "But what good is a father who can't provide?" He replied bitterly, the words spilling out before he could stop them. The fear erupted, raw and unfiltered. She paused, her eyes reflecting empathy, as she gently placed a hand on his arm. "You are there for her. That's what matters most. Stability isn't just financial, it's emotional." Jake sighed deeply, her words stirring a flicker of insight in him. Perhaps he had been looking at everything upside down. Perhaps stability didn't merely depend on monetary success but was intricately woven with their bond, the very thing he risked losing by diving too deep into business matters. Yet the deeper truth strangled him. He needed to resolve the issues surrounding the partnership with Collins, but he needed to safeguard what he had with her and Lily even more. What would happen if he chose to throw himself into the deal fully? In the pursuit of ambition, would he sacrifice invaluable connections? As he opened his mouth to speak, the front door creaked. His stomach dropped. The intruder was the last person he wanted to see. Mr. Collins stood at the threshold, a confident smile lingering on his lips, his briefcase in hand. The looming presence carried the promise of a direction but also the threat of upheaval. Jake's heart raced. He was no longer just a single dad fighting against life's current but a man standing on the precipice of a dilemma that could redefine everything. What path would he choose? And could he balance his ambitions without losing the most precious aspects of his life? The tension simmered, and Jake felt time slow. The moment of truth was upon him. Would he embrace the opportunity, or would he choose to protect the fragile bonds he had built? With their futures hanging in the balance, he felt the weight of the decision settle heavily on his shoulders. The next chapter awaited, and it was time to confront the truth. Jake's breath quickened, conflicted emotions colliding within him as he faced Mr. Collins. The familiar, polished demeanor of the CEO mocked the turmoil pulsing inside Jake's chest. Collins' gaze flickered past him into the dimly lit living room, and a knowing smile creased his lips. It was as if he had already assessed the situation and deemed it favorable. "Good evening, Jake," Collins said, stepping across the threshold like he owned the place. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything urgent." "Just checking on Lily," Jake replied, the tightness in his throat making his voice hoarse. He neglected to mention how intertwined his thoughts had become with Emma's presence and his growing uncertainty about the deal. Collins took a seat as if he were entitled to the place, settling back, casual yet dangerous. "I received your proposal draft earlier. We need to talk about the finer details so we can move forward. Time is of the essence, after all." The words moved forward, hung in the air, laden with implications that clawed at him. Did he truly want to dig deeper into this deal with Collins, potentially sacrificing everything he cherished? The thoughts raced through his mind as he battled with himself, pulling at the threads of his sanity. Look, Jake started, but the words felt heavy, caught in the web of his growing tension. He needed to think clearly, not merely react out of desperation. Taking a breath, he sought to ground himself in the moment. What do you expect from me? He forced out. The defiance surprised even him, a flicker of resilience rising from the depths. You know the stakes, right? It's not just about profit margins, it's about my daughter's well-being. Collins seemed unfazed, leaning in slightly, his interest piqued. Your daughter will benefit from your success. A new business means more stability, more opportunities. You'll be able to provide for her like you've always wanted. The justification gnawed at Jake. He had always believed that a father's role included financial security, but now there was a growing pang of realization. Was that what Lily truly needed? He glanced toward the hallway where the soft sounds of Lily's laughter floated through the house, intermingling with the shadows. That was what should anchor him, not this cold corporate embrace. The silence between them thickened, filled with unspoken challenges and choices. You're offering something appealing, but it comes with strings attached, Jake finally said, his tone firm. I want to lose my family to this venture, Collins. Isn't that the very essence of business? Collins shot back, not losing an ounce of his composure. To make sacrifices for the bigger picture? You're at a crossroads, Jake. Don't underestimate the opportunity you have. Fingers clenched on the edges of the table, Jake's pulse quickened, his instincts flaring. Was this what he wanted? A partnership built on the uncertainty of trust, all while walking a tightrope between ambition and family? Tell me what you want from me, he repeated, his voice steady but challenging, infused with a newfound determination. The moment felt pivotal, a defining crossroad. Collins exhaled slowly, visibly amused at Jake's resolve. You have potential, my friend, not just as a father but as a business leader. You have what it takes to lead this. Imagine the influence you could wield, the legacy you could build not just for yourself, but for your daughter. Jake's mind raced. Could he navigate this landscape without compromising the fragile foundation of his family? The allure of success sat like an unwelcome guest at the table, waiting for an invitation to stay. But what would he need to sacrifice to achieve that? Just then, Emma stepped into the room, pausing at the sight of Collins. Her eyes darted, sensing the tension. Jake caught the look of concern on her face, the worry that reflected his own. The wheels of his mind turned: a partnership with Collins or solidarity with those who mattered most? Are you going to stay for dinner, Collins? Emma asked, a subtle challenge hidden in her words. You really should eat something after your long drive. Jake's gaze lingered on her, the connection they shared a lifeline in this whirlwind of corporate ambition. Perhaps she had been right all along, it was not solely about the deals and figures, but the emotional stakes in play. As Collins adjusted his tie, Jake felt his heart hammering. The architect of his future stood before him, and yet he found himself yearning for something else, something rooted in love and trust. Was he truly prepared to confront the veiled motivations lurking beneath the surface? Maybe I need to take a step back, Jake said, the resolve shaping his words into a palpable force. Maybe I need to rethink this partnership. With those words, he reshaped the landscape of expectations. The balance had begun to shift, and now it was a matter of what he would choose. As the three of them stood poised at a crossroads, uncertainty crackled in the air. Jake's decision loomed like a specter, threatening to disrupt everything. In the throbbing silence of that moment, he understood, the next step would determine not just his professional future, but his family's legacy. Yet, as he looked into Emma's searching eyes, he knew the most important decision was yet to come. Would he risk too much for success, or trust in the bonds that had pulled him back from the edge? The weights of business and family hung heavy, and the voice of his inner conflict echoed as Collins simply replied, "We'll see what you decide." With that, Jake understood that his true journey was just beginning, and the reality of what was at stake was becoming clearer than ever. Jake's heart raced as he processed Colin's words, the unsettling blend of temptation and fear sharpening his focus. He glanced toward the dining room where Lily's laughter echoed, a melody that filled the house with warmth. It grounded him, reminding him of what truly mattered amid this unfolding storm. "Excuse me for a moment," he muttered, trying to maintain his composure. He walked past Collins and into the living room, allowing himself a moment to breathe away from piercing eyes. The walls painted in soft hues felt both comforting and claustrophobic. Was he suffocating under the weight of expectation? "Dad!" Lily called from her corner of the room, her innocent joy piercing through his turbulent thoughts. She was engrossed in a colorful craft project, various papers and markers strewn about so unlike the clear spreadsheets and proposals that Collins lived by. "Hey, kiddo," he said, forcing a smile. He knelt beside her, absorbing her youthful exuberance. It was moments like these that fed his soul, far beyond profit margins and corporate gains. "What are you working on?" "It's a picture for you." She beamed, holding up a vibrant, wobbly rainbow. "I want to hang it on the fridge." "Can we?" "Of course we can," he responded, his heart softening. The thought of placing her artwork on display was a small anchor in the sea of uncertainty he faced. With every brushstroke Lily made, the lines between career ambition and paternal duty blurred, reminding him that while he sought success, she craved his presence. Just then, he heard Emma's voice drift from the dining room, attempting to make small talk with Collins. The cadence of her words was terse. She was feeling the tension too. Jake rose to rejoin them, his mind made up. As he stepped back into the room, he felt empowered, ready to reclaim the conversation. Collins was spreading his hands wide, laying out his vision like a map of promises. "Jake, I understand your concerns, but think strategically. This could set you apart as a leader. But you need to dive in completely." "Strategically?" Jake echoed, the fire of indignation flaring. "Is that all this is to you? Some play to build an empire? I'm not looking for a chessboard, I'm building a life here." "Your life can thrive within this deal," Collins countered, his tone smooth and persuasive, yet Jake felt the darkness lurking beneath. "No, you've got it wrong," Jake replied, an unexpected resolve anchoring his words. "I will not put my daughter's peace of mind at stake just to chase a lucrative deal. I need to know that whatever I pursue doesn't jeopardize what I have at home." He indicated the living room, where Lily in her innocence was blissfully unaware of the complexities that swirled around her. Collins' expression hardened slightly, a crack in his polished facade. "Jake, if you keep holding back, you might miss opportunities that could change everything for you and Lily. You need to adapt." "Maybe adaptability means knowing when to step back as much as it does to charge ahead," Jake shot back. There was a clarity forming in him, a sharp choice shaping his future with each passing moment. Emma watched, her eyes widening in surprise and pride at Jake's stance. She had always believed in him, yet perhaps he hadn't seen the leader within himself until now. "What if I don't want that kind of change, Collins?" Jake asked, crossing his arms as he steeled himself against the persistent push of the CEO. "What if I want to create something that allows me to be here for my daughter, not just to write her checks?" The air shifted, tension hanging like a cloud before a storm. Jake felt the weight of choices lying ahead like scattered pieces of glass, sharp and unpredictable. He glanced between Collins and Emma, gathering strength from her supportive presence. Then Collins leaned back, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. "Perhaps you're more astute than I anticipated. But the question remains, Jake. What will you choose? To stay in your comfort zone, or to chase the unknown?" Jake's mind raced. He yearned for opportunity but recoiled at the thought of compromising sacred bonds for a fleeting success. The moment of decision was upon him, his response necessary not just for his career but for his identity as a father. "I won't sacrifice my heart for a chance at wealth," he finally declared, his voice steady and determined. "But I know a good opportunity when I see one, and if you can promise me less demand for my family's spirit and more focus on transparent growth, then we can talk." As he spoke, a wave of realization washed over him. This wasn't just a professional negotiation, but a personal reclamation. The truth crystallized within him. He had the power to dictate his terms, sparking a fire in his belly. As Collins opened his mouth, seemingly taken aback, Jake felt something shift inside him. He was ready to embrace both his roles as a businessman and a father without compromising one for the other. Maybe this journey is just beginning, Jake thought, contemplating the waves of conflict still ebbing and flowing. But I will fight for my family as fiercely as I would for any business deal. And just as that resolve formed, the doorbell rang, interrupting the charged atmosphere in the room, leaving all three of them frozen in anticipation of who was waiting outside. Jake could feel a shift in the fabric of his story, raising the question, could this visitor change everything he had just asserted? The door creaked open, revealing a tall figure silhouetted against the porch light. Jake's pulse quickened. He squinted to see better, his moment of clarity tinged with uncertainty. The figure stepped into the light, and recognition jolted through him like electricity. It was Casey, the college student who had been babysitting Lily sporadically for the past year. But tonight, there was something different in her demeanor. "Hey, I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, a tentative smile gracing her lips. "No, not at all," Jake replied, masking his surprise. "We were just..." He glanced back at Collins, who was now watching the newcomer with a keen interest, brows furrowed. The tension that had enveloped the room seemed to dissipate slightly, replaced by the air of youthful energy that Casey brought. Lily leaped up, her joy infectious. "Casey! You're here!" She dashed over, arms wide open, and enveloped Casey in a hug. "Hello, sweetheart," Casey laughed as she picked Lily up with ease. For a fleeting moment, Jake felt transported back to simpler days, before the weight of adult decisions had settled onto his shoulders. However, as Jake looked at the two, a new wave of anxiety crept in. Casey and Collins had just crossed paths, and he could sense the undercurrents swirling between them. Both were woven from different fabrics but shared one characteristic: ambition. "I didn't expect to see you tonight," Collins said, his voice smooth once more, all traces of the earlier tension replaced by cordiality. "Just picking up my things from earlier," Casey replied, her confidence buoying as she spoke. Jake noticed the slight hitch in her tone, the way her posture straightened, as if she were readying herself for a performance. "What do you study, Casey?" Collins asked, feigning casual interest, probing for any weaknesses in her resolve. "Business administration," she replied with a thrill of excitement that caused Jake to marvel at the sparkle in her eyes. "I'm really passionate about corporate social responsibility, actually." Jake raised an eyebrow, glancing at Collins, who regarded her with newfound scrutiny. Would Collins see the potential she had, or would he dismiss her as just another student? In that moment, Jake felt a protective instinct rising, not just for Lily but for Casey too. "Interesting," Collins said, leaning in slightly with a strategic smile. "It seems we have some powerful ideas colliding tonight. You should tell me more about your thoughts on social responsibility. I'm always looking for fresh perspectives." "Yeah, sure," Casey stammered, her confidence flickering at the sudden intensity of Collins' focus. Jake sensed the latent rivalry brewing. With Collins already eyeing young talent for his machinations, was he sparking this interest with ulterior motives? Deciding to step in, Jake interjected, "Maybe we should shift the conversation back to our original topic. Casey came to see Lily, after all. We can catch up later on business ideas." His voice was firm, yet he hoped it wasn't perceived as defensive. The air shifted again, tension crackling. Casey looked between Jake and Collins, sensing the power play unfolding. "Right, sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper now, her enthusiasm swallowed by the atmosphere. "I promise I'm only here to see Lily." As the remnants of tension hung in the space, Jake realized he had to steer this gathering. He wanted to encase Lily's innocent joy in the warmth of protective adult influence, but he also recognized something deeper. Jake's own aspirations were beginning to morph and expand. Was he poised to nurture these competing ambitions, or did he need to direct them towards common ground? Lily's laughter erupted anew, pulling him out of his spiraling thoughts as she tugged on Casey's arm, urging her back to her craft. In the back of his mind, Jake dismissed the vague alarm bells ringing at the edges of his consciousness. But as Collins circled the room, casting unpredictable glances between the two younger occupants, there emerged a question that pressed against his heart. Could he confidently create a safe space for Lily and help Casey navigate the storm of corporate politics around her? The door hadn't just opened to Casey, it had swung wide to a complex dance of ambitions and loyalties, something he hadn't anticipated. But as Jake locked eyes with Collins, something profound shifted. Their conflict wasn't over, the stakes had simply escalated. Jake was now entangled not just in a professional negotiation but in a deeper battle over guiding values and personal integrity. If the intricate weave of circumstances was pulling him away from his centering principle, it was up to him to determine just how far he'd bend without breaking. And as Jake calculated his next move, he realized that what lay ahead was not merely about choosing between familial love and business acumen, but about discovering whether he had the fortitude to unite them in a way that could redefine everything he ever believed. Jake took a deep breath, reminding himself to remain grounded. He watched Lily and Casey giggling, lost in their own world, but the specter of Collins loomed large. What did each encounter between them symbolize? Was he merely a caretaker watching over a fleeting moment, or was he an active participant in a crucible of ambitions? The atmosphere in the room felt charged, a precarious balance where laughter mattered just as much as the underlying ambitions swirling among the adults. As Casey playfully swung Lily around, joy radiated off them, but Jake could feel the undercurrent still tugging in a different direction. "Let us do some drawing, Casey," Lily squealed, breaking through the tension with innocent exuberance. "Of course," Casey replied, her smile brightening as she dropped to her knees next to Lily, opening the art supplies spread across the table. Jake saw the shift in Casey. She was animated, her passion for connecting with Lily overshadowing the earlier pressure from Collins. He welcomed it but did not ignore Collins' presence, the predator observing the playful interaction with keen determination. Stepping to the kitchen, Jake tried to reclaim his focus on dinner preparation, yet his mind wrestled with the implications of the night. Collins had come to this house under the guise of business. Perhaps he had his own designs that could threaten not just his family dynamics, but the future ambitions of both Casey and Jake himself. Was there a way to ensure Casey wouldn't become another pawn in Collins' corporate chess game? Jake's protective instincts flared up again. He poured a glass of water to calm himself, attempting to make sense of his confusing thoughts. As he returned to the living room, the art session was in full swing. Casey was teaching Lily about colors, and for a moment, Jake was captivated by the enthusiasm radiating from them. That joy was the catalyst he needed. It reminded him of his own dreams, buried beneath the weight of responsibility. What had he been willing to sacrifice for success? A touch of resolve washed over him. He couldn't let fear dictate the atmosphere. Instead, he would build a space where ambition could flourish alongside values. He closed his eyes for a second, allowing the laughter to seep into his consciousness like a soothing balm. "Hey, Casey," he ventured, "I'd love to hear more about your ideas for corporate responsibility." Those words surprised even him, but they were an invitation, not just to Casey, but an open challenge to Collins. Let us see how he navigates this, he thought. Really? Casey's face lit up again, sparking enthusiasm he hadn't seen since she had entered. "Yes," Jake stated, continuing to watch Collins. "You're passionate about it. It might help to explore your ideas in a relaxed setting. You never know what concepts garner attention." Collins turned slightly toward Jake, a mixture of intrigue and caution playing across his features. "Corporate social responsibility is indeed a discussion worth having. Wouldn't you agree, Casey?" Jake felt an immediate tension between them, recognizing that Collins saw this as an opportunity to rattle Casey's confidence. It was up to him to ensure she didn't falter. "Absolutely," Jake countered, his voice steady. "What motivates you to explore it, Casey?" She looked between them, a hint of determination surfacing. "I think businesses can do better investing in their communities, becoming role models, and creating a culture that encourages innovation while being mindful of their impact on society." Jake could sense her confidence steadied, forming an internal barrier against the probing nature of Collins. This was at the moment when both Casey and he could deliberate their respective goals without relinquishing their identities. As Collins listened attentively, Jake recognized the thrill of agency pulse through him. He was no longer solely the protector, he was a participant in their journey, willing to cultivate a shared space of ambition driven by values. Jake stole a glance at Lily, who was now seriously focused on creating a masterpiece. The innocent complexity of childhood spilled over their world in vibrant hues and brimming imaginations, illuminating the threads of hope that wove their distinct paths together. Yet, just as the conversation was gaining speed, Collins leaned closer, his voice low and measured. "Are you sure you want to engage in this area, Casey? It's filled with sharks." The warning sliced through the air, punctuated by a palpable hush that fell upon the room, leaving Jake questioning how much Collins knew and what his next move might be. Jake's heart quickened, the stakes had already escalated well beyond expectations. The challenge hung heavily in the air. Could they maintain their aspirations and navigate the tensions Collins created around them? And as they continued their discussion, he felt uncertainty creeping back in, sparking a mental countdown toward a crucial decision that could change everything. What would it take to safeguard their ambitions while facing the impending storm? The questions loomed larger, releasing a tremor of urgency within him. Everything depended on the choices he'd soon have to make in the shadow of Collins' calculating gaze. The room's heavy silence stretched, and Jake sensed the stakes rising. Collins' words hung ominously in the air, each syllable echoing Jake's fears for Casey's future. He yearned to shield her from this predatory atmosphere, yet he felt the gravity of the moment present a potential breakthrough. "Why not make it a positive challenge, Casey?" Jake posited, his conviction crystallizing. "If you believe businesses can shape their communities, then let us formulate a plan. Show Collins your ideas, and navigate the sharks, together." Collins frowned, clearly unhappy with this shift in dynamics. Jake felt a surge of defiance. This was the moment of truth. Could he aid Casey in pushing back against the intimidating presence Collins embodied? "Jake's right," Casey said, firming her position. "If companies are only motivated by profit, they miss out on building a better world." There was something raw in her voice, a growing assertiveness that ignited excitement within Jake. This shared vision was their battleground against Collins. "Those are noble thoughts, Casey," Collins interjected, though his voice dripped with condescension. "But the reality is far more complex. Idealistic plans often fall prey to the bottom line. You'll learn that soon enough." Jake's fists clenched momentarily. Collins' condescension was apparent, but more than that, Jake saw the reflection of his own doubts in Collins, the creeping fear of failure lurking within him. He fought against it. "But it's not just about the businesses. It's also about the people. Every decision we make has a ripple effect." This was the crux of the battle. The concept of ambition juxtaposed against morality struck a chord. As he spoke, he realized he was staking a claim in this dialogue not merely as a father or friend, but as a thinker, as a man willing to redefine his objectives. The world they traversed was shifting from trepidation toward potential integration of hope and corporate ideals. Jake shifted closer, locking eyes with Collins. "You may know your sharks, Collins, but I won't let fear guide our ambitions. Casey deserves every chance to become the leader she was meant to be, guided by integrity, not intimidation." The air thickened, the tension palpable as Jake awaited Collins' response. Casey's eyes sparkled with a mix of admiration and resolve, and for the first time, Jake saw a spark of courage in her demeanor. Could this be the turning point? "Your principles are admirable, Jake," Collins replied, though his voice was strained, as if he were assessing the threat present. "But let us not forget that your idealism could lead to heartbreak or worse." With every word, Jake felt the heaviness of responsibility combined with the exhilarating rush of purpose. This wasn't just about protecting Casey, it was about reclaiming his own narrative in the professional landscape. "What's the worst that could happen?" Jake pressed. "Failure is a part of growth, but we won't shy away from asking difficult questions or acknowledging tough challenges. If Casey is as capable as I believe, then the so-called sharks won't even know what hit them." In that moment, Jake realized his motivations had stepped beyond paternal instinct. He had embraced a transcendence of personal ambition. He blinked, taking in the smiles of Casey and Lily, the little artist immersed in her world. There was still light to be drawn from their joyous essence. Collins regarded him with a calculating gaze, and Jake wasn't sure if he was more intrigued or irritated. "We'll see how far idealism takes you," Collins replied, punctuating the challenge with malice, as he turned his attention back to Casey. The air felt electric with unspoken confrontation, but Jake sensed an undeniable shift. He was no longer simply weighing their futures against what Collins envisioned. The pulse of determination surged within him. But amid the rising emotions, a ripple of uncertainty flickered through him. What price might he have to pay to protect this vision? Are you prepared to face potential consequences from pushing back? Collins' eyes glinted with a challenging edge. Jake's thoughts raced. Was he truly ready to navigate this unpredictable landscape, risking everything on an unestablished path? His resolve was tested, but the strength of him and Casey ignited defiance against the looming threat. Just as Jake began to articulate a response, a sound echoed from the dining room, pulling their focus. A crash shattered the tension, leaving Jake's heart pounding. What had just happened? The game had shifted, and the next move felt more precarious than ever. An unsettling certainty gripped him. Changing the course of their ambitions was just the beginning. Unforeseen challenges were emerging on the horizon, and he needed to prepare for whatever chaos awaited. Jake's heart raced as he turned toward the sound of the crash, anxiety amplifying the charged atmosphere in the room. Collins shifted, tension radiating off him like heat waves, eager to assess the implications of the disruption. "Casey, stay here," he commanded abruptly, stepping away from the confrontation to investigate. The priority of his protective instincts wrestled with a newfound assertiveness, as he realized just how far he had come in challenging Collins. As he entered the dining room, the sight that met him was both alarming and mundane. A tipped-over chair lay beneath the shattered remnants of a ceramic vase, fragments scattered across the polished wooden floor like fallen petals. Lily stood at the edge of the chaos, her wide eyes swimming with guilt. "Lily. Are you okay?" Jake rushed to her side as Casey appeared in the doorway, her earlier resolve wavering slightly as she gauged the situation. An internal voice scolded him, though the moment felt trivial in hindsight. He could sense the struggle of balancing his daughter's safety with the high stakes of the professional encounter that awaited them. His thoughts spiraled. Lily nodded, sniffling, guilt etched into her tiny features. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to reach it, and I grabbed the wrong thing." Jake knelt down, gently holding her shoulders. "It's all right. Accidents happen. Just be careful next time, okay?" He offered her a reassuring smile, though the looming confrontation with Collins nagged at the back of his mind. Reassured, he helped her clean up the fragments, the mundane task grounding him amid the swirling emotions of the last few moments. This was a moment of normalcy, yet in everything mundane, Jake found clarity. The chaotic disruption had strangely ignited a profound awareness of what truly mattered, the both of them striving for a future they could shape. As the debris was cleared and the tension in the room began to dissipate, Jake felt a renewed sense of commitment to both Casey and Lily. They were a team, each learning and developing, and he recognized that this relationship also called for vulnerability and trust as they stood against the looming pressures of the real world. "Listen, Casey," he said softly, looking up at her as she moved cautiously closer. The weight of their conversation about idealism loomed over them, but so did the understanding that their growth depended on sharing their fears. "After we deal with Collins, let us take a moment to really strategize. We need to prepare ourselves for whatever comes next." There was a determined spark in Casey's eyes, the defiance from earlier igniting again. "I'm ready. Let us show him what we can do." "Exactly." The resolve bound them closer, their quiet confidence fortified by shared purpose. Yet Jake couldn't shake the lingering doubt. Was this self-assurance enough to override the complexities they would soon face? As they both stepped back into the main room, Jake sensed Collins' gaze cutting through the air, assessing the aftermath of the minor disaster with renewed scrutiny. The quiet confidence he felt began to waver under the weight of the professional stakes surrounding them. "Are you two done with your little family moment?" Collins asked, a sardonic edge in his tone. Jake's pulse quickened. He could either retreat into fear or stand his ground, poised for battle. His earlier declarations echoed in his mind. He wouldn't let this man intimidate them. Not even close, Jake replied, his voice steadier than he felt. But even as he uttered those words, a nagging thought clawed at him. Would this confrontation merely be the calm before the storm or a pivotal turning point in their journey? Collins leaned closer, the corner of his lips curling into a sly smile. I hope you're prepared. This isn't just another conversation, it's a reckoning. The tension crackled in the air as Jake braced himself. They were on the edge of something monumental, and he could feel the stakes rising dangerously high. Was he truly ready for the reckoning that awaited? The answer loomed just beyond reach, compelling him to confront what might shatter everything he had built. Jake's muscles tightened as he turned to face Collins, the words hanging heavy in the air. The confrontation felt like a duel, both men locked in a silent pact of anticipation. With Lily and Casey observing from the sidelines, he knew whatever came next would ripple through their lives. Collins' gaze sharpened, piercing the facade of Jake's calm exterior. What you need to understand, he said slowly, deliberately, is that this isn't just about you and your little dreams. There are ramifications for every action you take. For a chaotic moment, Jake felt the familiar surge of insecurity clawing at his thoughts. Was he in over his head? The shadows of doubt whispered horrible things, visions of failure, consequences for his daughters, and the bitter taste of regret. But the moments with Lily had infused him with a purposeful clarity that rooted him where he stood. Don't underestimate what we want to achieve, Jake declared, his voice a touch firmer than he expected. This is more than a job for me, it's about setting an example for Lily and Casey. It's about showing them what fighting for your goals looks like. The fire in Jake awakened something inside. Each word resonated with purpose, an internal manifesto that had been brewing beneath the surface. Collins raised an eyebrow, his surprise momentarily disarming him. Do you really think you can just come in here, with your little brand of optimism, and make an impact? Collins countered, skepticism dripping from his tone. I already have, Jake fired back, a newfound tenacity igniting his demeanor. And it's just the beginning. The realization struck him he'd allowed Collins too much room to dictate the terms of the fight, but that was changing now. The stakes were uniquely personal, they weren't just about business deals but the lives of those he loved. The understanding welled within him like a rising tide, pushing out fear, replacing it with determination. He needed to harness that feeling, frame it into something tangible. Not everything can be bought or sold, Collins. Some things are worth more than your power plays and all the money in the world. Each statement fueled his conviction, and in that moment, he saw the tiniest flicker of uncertainty flit across Collins' face. Jake glanced at Casey and Lily, who stood united near the doorway, their silent support fueling his resolve. They had each other, they fought together, and that bond provided a foundation upon which confidence could grow. If we're going to have any chance at all, we need to play our own game, Jake said, returning his focus to Collins. I'm not interested in your tactics, I'm carving my own path. The atmosphere shifted. Jake could feel it, a crackling energy that shifted the dynamic. Collins' mask of arrogance cracked slightly as he absorbed Jake's fierce declaration. There was an inkling of respect buried in the depths of his expression, a recognition of Jake's tenacity. You think you have what it takes? Collins asked, his tone dropping to a near whisper, as if they were now two players on an unforeseen battleground. You better be ready to lose everything. Then let us see what I can build from the ashes, Jake replied, with defiance igniting in his voice. This wasn't simply about winning a confrontation, it was about establishing his identity amidst the chaos of his newfound realities. Collins leaned back, assessing Jake one last time, running fingers through his hair contemplatively. We'll see, won't we? He said, and with that, the tension morphed into an air of challenge, something more than Jake had anticipated. As they stood frozen in this moment of charged confrontation, Jake felt the undeniable escalation of stakes. The journey he had embarked on was becoming neither simple nor straightforward, but something deeper and more substantial, a fight for himself and his family. With the weight of Collins's words still hanging heavily, Jake turned back to Casey and Lily, who exchanged glances filled with apprehension and strength. Ready to strategize? he asked, his heart pounding with potential. More than ever, Casey replied, a fierce determination returning to the spark in her eyes. But in that moment of budding hope, Jake couldn't shake the gnawing sensation lingering in the back of his mind. Had he truly escaped the shadows only to step into a greater challenge? If they were to face the reckoning, they needed to be aware of the real consequences that lay ahead. As he took a deep breath, Jake realized that confronting Collins was just the beginning. The path they would carve together might require sacrifices he hadn't yet considered. He felt the weight shifting. What lay ahead was a mystery wrapped in a challenge, and it demanded they redefine everything they knew. Jake was ready to confront that new narrative, but was the team they had built strong enough to rise above the looming threat? Days turned into weeks as Jake prepared to face the repercussions of his decisions. Choosing to confront Collins had set off a cascading series of events. The initial encounter ignited a fierce determination within him, and now he was fully committed to merging his professional aspirations with his responsibilities as a father. He understood that this was not just about him anymore. It was about establishing a legacy of integrity and emotional stability for Lily and Casey. Lily's laughter had become a melody of motivation, spurring him on as he honed a business plan with Casey's input. They pored over market analyses and potential outreach strategies, blending their visions to create something revolutionary, a new model for corporate responsibility. Their shared ideals formed a bond, reinforcing Jake's belief that success could indeed coexist with caring for the community. As the day of the presentation approached, the anxiety that initially consumed him had transformed into anticipation. He recognized the weight of the moment. This was not merely about financial gain, it was an opportunity to redefine what success looked like in a cutthroat world. The stakes were high, but the added pressure galvanized him. Each night spent crafting their presentation felt less burdensome and more like an enriching collaboration with Casey, a step toward promising futures for them all. On the morning of the big meeting with Collins and other stakeholders, Jake felt the gravity of his preparation. He stood strong in front of the mirror, wearing a shirt that fit just right. A newly developed sense of self reflected back at him. The past few weeks had molded him into a figure of resolution, embodying both fatherhood and ambition. As he entered the conference room, the atmosphere buzzed with expectancy. Collins lounged at the head of the table, an air of calculated confidence settling over him. But Jake noted a subtle shift in Collins' demeanor. Perhaps he was beginning to understand the gravity of challenging expectations. "Good to see you again, Jake," Collins said, his voice smooth yet not without a fierceness that belied their previous exchanges. "Let us hear your pitch." With unwavering focus, Jake delivered their plan. He spoke from the heart, conveying that profit could indeed coincide with purpose. It was a vision that not only aimed for financial success but aimed to set a standard for community engagement and social accountability. The pitch flowed seamlessly, with Casey chipping in, confidently interjecting statistical data and personal anecdotes about the positive impacts that socially responsible companies could have. The synergy between them was palpable. What once felt daunting turned into a presentation of potential partnership, inviting others to see beyond mere dollars and cents. As Jake concluded, his heart hammered in his chest. He had laid it all out, his vision for their future, a blended paradigm of ambition and familial values. A moment of silence settled in the room, and he caught the exchange of glances between Collins and the other stakeholders. It was a different kind of tension now, one filled with the possibility of profound change. Collins cleared his throat, leaning back in his chair, weighing their proposal carefully. "It's admirable work, Jake. But ideals are easy to present. The challenge lies in implementation. Are you sure you are prepared for the potential pitfalls of such initiatives? What happens if the focus on community leads to a loss of profit?" Jake took a steadying breath, meeting Collins' gaze squarely. "It's exactly those pitfalls that inspire us to be innovative. Adapting to challenges increases resilience within a business. We're ready for obstacles because we understand they serve as stepping stones towards sustainable growth. True success is tethered to authenticity, and we fully invest in that belief." The room erupted in thoughtful murmurs, and for the first time, Jake saw a hint of vulnerability flicker across Collins' usually placid expression. He was beginning to see Jake and Casey as genuine contenders, not just as token players in his corporate chess game. When the meeting came to a close, Collins nodded curtly. You've given me something to think about. Let us reconvene next week to discuss this further. As they filed out of the conference room, Jake and Casey exchanged gleeful looks. The sensation of liberation coursed through them. They had proven their merit, they had defiantly reshaped their narrative and stepped into a realm powered by hope. Over the next few days, as the anticipation of a second meeting settled in, Jake embraced the profound fulfillment stemming from their journey. Little by little, he laid bare both his vulnerabilities and ambitions. He saw how the convergence of family and professional aspirations had presented him with a rich tapestry of growth. With each small victory, the fortified connections among them felt stronger. Jake realized that embracing vulnerability had brought him closer to Casey and Lily, grounding their shared ambitions in emotional integrity. His evenings spent coaching Lily through her art projects mirrored the partnership he formed with Casey. They were creating something valuable together, building resilience in each stroke of creativity. When the day of the follow-up meeting arrived, he felt empowered. As he stood in the conference room once more, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose coursing through him. He understood now that genuine connections fostered strength and hope. At that pivotal meeting, Collins presented options grounded in compromise, but Jake was ready to negotiate further. He offered a proposal that not only prioritized ethical growth but also reinforced the emotional foundations he had built for his family. As Collins finally agreed, Jake felt a rush of triumph wash over him. The journey had transformed him into a leader who reveled in merging ambition with compassion. He had fought against the tide of corporate sterility and emerged stronger, recognizing that true achievement came not just from profit but from nurturing bonds that could endure. As he exited the building, he felt a buoyant sense of accomplishment, but more importantly, profound joy in the foundation he was building for Lily's future. The world opened up with potential. He had claimed a meaningful victory. Jake looked ahead, ready to embrace the new chapter that awaited, confident that he had united his personal growth with the aspirations he had always cherished. This was not merely a career milestone, it was an achievement steeped in love, resolve, and the promise of a bright future. Now, Jake thought, all that remained was nurturing this spirit he had cultivated alongside Casey and Lily, a family anchored in resilience and authentic ambition. The world was theirs to navigate, and he was ready not just as a father or businessman but as a man who had truly found himself. If you resonate with Jake's journey of self-discovery and ambition, you need to subscribe now. You don't want to miss out on the next exclusive emotional stories that push us toward overcoming challenges. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find inspiration. Comment your reactions and theories about Jake's path to success. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformative conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Support this journey of personal growth and empowerment.